Hello everyone and welcome to my live stream. My name is Prin and I would like to say good morning, good afternoon and good evening to you all wherever you are, okay? So in this live stream, of course, we'll be focusing on English learning and normally we'll be looking at various topics, okay? But for today, we'll be focusing on grammar. So specifically, we'll look at English grammar errors, all right? Now, if you're watching, please say hi, okay? Just type something in the comment. I want to see what you're doing now and where you're from, okay? All right. So before we begin today, I would like to say that the language that I'll use today is purely in English because we are learning English, right? So it's a good thing to actually learn with English language, okay? You get to practice your listening skills as well. And for today, like what I've said at the beginning, we'll look at English grammar. So this is beneficial when you need to take a test like TOEFL, TOEIC, or IELTS, or if you have to take some school or university exams, like admission tests, things like that. Knowing grammar will help you, and also knowing grammar will help you when you're reading or listening to other people because you'll understand things better and more correctly, all right? And also, when you're writing or speaking yourself, you'll be able to convey your message better, okay? So grammar is an important thing in language learning as well, okay? So if you're watching, if you have just joined in, don't forget to say hi, okay? I'm so glad that you're able to join today. Okay, so for today, let's look at our questions, okay? So let's start with this one. Okay, I hope you can see it on your screen now, the first one. So in each sentence, there is one error, okay? And there are 4 choices, which I have underlined. So if you know the answer, just type it in the comments, okay? Like if you think number 1 or number 2 is incorrect, just type number 1 or number 2. Or if you have time, just type the whole word, all right? Now, let's look at this first sentence. I will give you some time, all right? Before we will show the answer and explain the sentence. So what do you think is the incorrect word in this sentence? Please feel free to just type your answer. I'll give you some time. Okay, so let's get started with this one. Let's look at the meaning of the sentence first, okay? So it's talking about the locations of condominiums, okay? So let's start with the word locations, okay? Locations. Okay, just a moment. So, okay. Now, seems like, all right. So let's look at the first word, okay? So we have locations. So locations is like the area where something is situated, all right? And the next one, condominiums, okay? Condominiums are a type of buildings, right? Condominiums are like high-rise buildings where many people live, okay? Condominiums normally have many floors or many stories. Has always been related to the transportation available. So here it's saying that, where you find condominiums are related to what? To the available transportation. So transportation can be like, trains, subways, buses, and so on. So this sentence is trying to show us that if you want to find condominiums, they are more likely to be around places with lots of transportation, okay? So for this one, the word that you actually need to change is number one, okay? Which is what? Has, okay. So why is number one incorrect? Does anyone know? Oh, looks like we have one answer here. Okay, so Paul Patra said one has always. Yes, that is the correct answer because let's go back to our question. Okay, so one is incorrect. Why? Because here the subject of the sentence is locations, okay? We are talking about many locations. The subject is a plural, so we need a plural verb as well, and has is a singular verb. So instead of saying has, we need to use have, okay, for this sentence to be correct. Okay, so the correct answer is the locations of condominiums have always been related to the transportation available. So the place where you can find condominiums or high-rise residential buildings are places which there are lots of transportation or transport options, okay? Now let's move on to number two. Okay, so this is number two. I will give you some time to read and choose the incorrect words, okay? Just one, two, three, or four. Which is incorrect and how can you correct it? Have a guess and type it in the comments area. Okay, just a moment. I need to change something. Okay, there you go. Okay. Okay, does anyone know the answer to this one? Let's look at the meaning of this sentence first. In the early 18th century, so here it's focusing on the beginning of this century, okay? Okay, the violin. Violin is, of course, a musical instrument. Was used, okay, in the orchestra. So an orchestra is like a group of musicians playing a single piece of music. Primarily means mainly or mostly as an accompanying instrument. So in this case, instrument means tools, but in this sentence, it means a musical instrument. So, anything that can be used to play music is called a musical instrument, okay? And accompanying means like to support, okay, not the main one. So this sentence wants to tell us that in the beginning of the 18th century, okay, so the year maybe 1700 something, okay, the instrument called violin was used in a band or orchestra mostly as a supporting instrument, not the main one, not the lead or solo instrument, okay? That's the meaning of this sentence. So how can we correct this sentence? Have a guess. What do you think? Okay, so for this one, the answer that we need to correct, okay, not the correct answer, is actually number one, was using, okay. This one is an error. How can we correct this error? Well, we should say the violin was used, okay. So it becomes in the early 18th century, the violin was used in the orchestra primarily as an accompanying instrument. Now, do you know the reason why we need to use was used instead of was using? Anyone? Okay, so the reason that we use was used is because the violin is an instrument. It's not a living thing. So normally it can't do things by itself. That's why we use was used, which is a passive voice, okay, to show that this thing, the violin, was used to do something, okay? It can't move by itself, but maybe a person can move it, can play it. That's why we use was used, the passive voice, all right? Next one. Okay, this one is number 3. Okay, have a go. What do you think is the incorrect answer that we need to change? Come on, please feel free to have a guess, okay? Just type your answer. Which one should we change? 1, 2, 3, or 4? What do you think? Okay, let's now look at the meaning of this sentence. So it's talking about the spontaneity of children's writing. So let's look at the word spontaneity. Does anyone know what it means? This means, oh, looks like we have an answer. Okay, so thank you, Pawin. Okay, so you said apart from should be a part of. So you think number 2 should be changed, right? Okay, we'll find out the answer in a moment. But first of all, thank you so much for sharing your answer. Okay, so let's look at the meaning first. The spontaneity, it's like things which happen instantly, immediately, okay, of children's writing. So when young people, so children, write, okay, think that their writing seems like spontaneous, like immediate, without thinking too much. Anything that comes up in their mind is immediately or instantly or spontaneously sent to their pens or like hands. And when they write or type, their thoughts come out without being filtered. So here it's saying that, when you read the writing of young people, especially children, it seems more like, immediate without trying to, having to like filter or change some words for suitability or things like that. Okay, so here it says sets it apart from. So the fact that the writing of children is spontaneous makes it different. So sets it apart from means makes it different from, okay? From what? Regulated uniformity. Uniformity is like something which is the same, okay? Uniform, all the same. Like school uniform, everyone is the same, okay? Regulated means having rules and regulations, to control, like, oh, you need this first and then this second, stuff like that. Of much of what otherwise go on in works by adult authors. So the sentence wants to show us that this is different from most of the things which go on or happen, in this case, in writing or works by whom? By writers who are adults, okay? Otherwise is used to like show, an opposite, the opposite of something, okay? So overall, this sentence wants to show us that children's writing is more direct, okay? This is different, so it sets it apart from what? From the way adult writers or adult authors write, because writing by adults tend to have like patterns and stuff like that, okay? So now that's the overall meaning. I hope I have been clear. If you don't understand something, please feel free to ask me. I would be more than happy to help you. Anyway, now let's look at this one. The word that you need to change actually is number 4. Okay? Now, you may wonder why. Well, at first, let's go back to the main verb in the subject of this sentence. Sorry, the main word in the subject of this sentence. So we can see the noun here. Spontaneity, okay? It's a word to show the fact that something is instant, okay? No delay, no wait. This is an uncountable noun, okay? So an uncountable noun requires a verb that is singular, like this one. If we want to write it in present, we add s normally, right? So number 1 is correct because spontaneity is uncountable, so we need a singular verb, and sets is a singular verb for present simple, so this is correct. And what about number 2? Is it okay? Number 2 is also okay because it's like word collocation, words which we normally use together. So if something is set apart from, it means that thing is different from something. So apart from, these 2 words are normally used together. So this is actually okay. And this one, much of or most of, in this case, we use much of, which is also correct because we just want to say like, the majority of something. And we can use much with uncountable nouns. And remember, the subject, the actual subject of this sentence is spontaneity, which is an uncountable noun. So this is correct. Okay, so now we move on to number 4. Number 4, go on. In present simple, go on is used with a plural noun normally, okay? But this one, remember, it's an uncountable noun, so we use it with a singular verb, but go on is considered a plural verb, so we can't use go on. What should we use to correct the sentence? Well, it should be goes on, okay? There. We just add es, and this sentence is now fully correct. Because why do I know that here is the verb for the main subject? Well, here, check out this word, what. When we use what in this position like this, it means things, okay? So a thing, and it refers to this word. So it takes the same format, which means the main noun, the subject, is uncountable. What here is also uncountable. So we need a singular verb, okay? So we use goes on. If you're unsure, just replace what with the word spontaneity. So it becomes the spontaneity of children's writing sets it apart from the regulated uniformity of much of the spontaneity which go on in works by adult authors, something like that. So as you can see, what is kind of like a pronoun for the word spontaneity. So it has to be like in the same form. So that's why we need the same form of verb as well. That's why in this case, we write goes on, which is a verb for singular or uncountable nouns, all right? And thank you anyway, everyone, for submitting the answer, okay? It's okay if you got it wrong or if you got it right because you will learn something, I'm sure. How about this one? Have a go. How can we correct this sentence? Any guesses? Okay, let's look at the meaning of this sentence first. When we try to define a word, so when we try to define, which is to give meaning to a word, we often is the same as what? Frequently. Find out that no two people agrees on its meanings. So we discover that, even with two people, they can't agree. They don't think the same on its, considering its meaning. So like, if there's a word and we want to give the meaning to this word, when we ask two different people, what happened? Well, these two people actually are very likely to give different answers. Okay, so what should be the answer? Oh, look, there's one. Okay, thank you, Pawin, for your answer. So you say that number 3 is incorrect. All right. Well, let's find out the answer together. And Papa Tra also said number 3. All right. Okay, thank you for the answers. Now let's see the answer. So the word that we should correct in this case is number 3. Okay. It's number 3. Okay. So thank you for the answers from both of you. You are correct. Why? Because here we are talking about no two people, which is plural. We are talking about more than one thing. So the verb needs to be a plural verb, right? So we should correct it to what? Agree without the S. Okay. Yep. So that's the correct answer. We remove the S because remember, this is a plural noun, people. Okay. And you may be wondering, the word no, when we see the word no, do we use singular or do we use plural noun? Well, normally when we use no, the noun that we use, if we can count that noun, we use the plural form normally, okay? But there are cases where you can use a singular noun, but most of the time we use plural. So in this case, it's perfectly fine to say no two people, okay? But if it's uncountable noun, that's another matter because we can't add S anyway, so we just use its normal form, okay? And other words are correct because try to define. When we try to do something, we normally use the word try with to, okay? That's a normal usage. And after to, we normally use a base form, the base form of the verb. Okay, base form. Does anyone know what a base form is? Of the verb. The base form of the verb is like, the most minimal form. You don't add S, you don't add ing, ed, or you change the form or whatever, okay? It's like the form that you see in the dictionary, that's the base form. So normally after to, the word to, we add the base form of the verb. So define here, as you can see, we don't add anything at the end or change the form at all, okay? And on here is also fine because if we look at collocation, so words which we normally use together, we can say agree on, okay? This is perfectly fine. So overall, this sentence tells us that when we want to give meaning to a word, when we ask any two people, okay, any two person, what happens? It is hard for people to agree on the meanings because each word probably has, it is possible to have lots of meanings, right? Depending on the context, and there may be like subtle or hidden meanings as well. Okay, so that's the answer. Okay, I think I have a couple more sentences. Let's look at this one, the next one. Okay, so have a read. Let's look at the meaning, overall meaning of this sentence first. Every device in the room. So do you know what a device is? A device is like a piece of thing, or maybe a machine, okay, something which like can function, can do something. So this, it's saying that every device in the room, okay, so every device in maybe a room we are talking about, consume means use, okay, more energy, so like maybe electricity, okay, than it creates. Sorry, this one should be than, okay, more energy than it creates. So we want to say that every tool, every machine, everything inside a certain room, a particular room, okay, every piece of device, what happens? Use more energy than it is able to create. Okay, so if a device is to create energy, it's to generate energy, maybe to generate electricity or some kind of movement. Okay, so what can we change to make this sentence correct? 1, 2, 3, or 4? What do you think? All right, let's look at the answer together. So for this one, the subject is every device. So we're talking about, every piece of equipment or tool. Now, if we use every, the verb has to be singular. So this is correct. Now, not the verb, the noun needs to be singular. So now this is correct, right? Every plus singular noun, every device is correct. Since the noun is singular, what happens to the verb? The verb needs to be singular as well. And if it's in the present simple, we can't write consume like this. We need to correct it and change it into consumes. Okay, every device consumes. This is correct because the subject singular, this one is also singular. And likewise, we can see that here we use create with s, creates, as a singular verb because the subject for this part, it is singular as well. Okay, and next one. Okay, have a read. How can we correct this sentence? What do you think? Come on, have a guess. If you're correct, that's great. If you did not get it correct this time, I'm sure you will learn something new, okay? Okay, let's look at the overall meaning of this sentence first. There have been a dramatic increase. So an increase is when something goes up, okay? So like maybe, the cost goes up, the cost increases, okay? If there is more of something, that is an increase. And if you say a dramatic increase, it means it's a big increase. Anyone can see it. Okay, so here's saying that somewhere there has been an increase in what? A big increase in what? In patients. So patients are people who are sick and normally they go to the hospital, okay? Patients suffering. If someone is suffering, he or she is like hurt or unwell, okay? And has to go through something which is bad. So here the patients are suffering from what? A disease called heart disease. So maybe your heart is not working well, okay? In the last few years. So in the past 2 or 3 years, this sentence wants to tell us that in the past 2 or 3 years, there have been many cases of people having heart disease, okay? The number of people with heart disease is increasing. So what should we change? 1, 2, 3, or 4 to make this sentence fully correct? What do you think? Any guesses? All right, let's find out the answer together. The place that we need to change or correct is here. Okay, and it should be changed to has been. Okay, so there has been a dramatic increase. Why? Because the main verb here, the main word here is increase. Okay, and increase. Okay. Okay, so increase here is singular. So we don't use there have been. We need there has been. Remember when we look at a sentence which starts with a word like there, we need to look at like the nearest noun as well, or the nearest pronoun, okay, to see whether it is singular or it is a plural or it is uncountable. So in this case, it's talking about an increase, okay, a dramatic increase. So it's talking about only one thing, one increase. This is singular. So the sentence begins with there. We need a singular verb so that it goes along with the main noun here, the main word here, okay? So increase is singular. We need singular verb as well, okay? So it's not there have been, it's there has been, okay? So we can't say like this. This is the correct answer. And okay, so I think we have some answers. Okay, thank you, Kun Pawin, for sharing your answer. Thank you so much. Okay, so you said number 2. So let's go and see number 2. Is number 2 okay? So dramatic means big or a lot, right? Dramatic. Dramatic is an adjective. We can use an adjective to describe a noun, and here is a noun. So it's describing, giving more meaning to increase. What kind of increase? A dramatic increase, a big increase. So this is okay because that's what adjectives do. Adjectives give more meaning to nouns, okay? And increase is okay, so we can count an increase. And I have another answer. So from PAR, number 4. Okay. So number 4, it's saying that, you know, the last, or alternatively, we can say the past. The past. So we can say last or past. These are okay because we're just describing few years, right? How many years? Few years. That's like 2 or 3 years. And when did that happen? Well, in the last or the past few years. So like in 2 or starting from 2 to 3 years ago up until now. So it's fine to use last or past. Okay, but it's a good try anyway. Thank you so much for sharing your answer. Anyway, just to confirm, this one, the words that you need to change are have been. We need to change them to has been. So number 1 is the incorrect part here, okay? Okay, I have one more sentence. This one is a bit long, so please take some time to read and please just type in the comments area, okay? So which word or words are incorrect and needs to be changed? What do you think? 1, 2, 3, or 4? Okay, so let's look at the overall meaning first. The development of computers. Development is like when something is made and improved and made better. That's the development, okay, of computers. So it's talking about how computers have been created and made better with new models, new technologies, which started around 200 years ago. So this process, the process of development of computers, started or began when? About or around 200 years ago. So that's quite a long time. And it says here has been progressing. So it has been improving, okay? This is to say that the development has been moving forward or improving, getting better, particularly rapidly. Rapidly is fast. And if you say particularly rapidly, it means quite or very fast. In when? The last 30 years. So in the last or past 30 years, the development of computers have been moving forward and getting better very quickly. Okay, has made possible. So make something possible, make something a reality. Okay, projects. So projects are like things which you plan to create, to do, and to achieve a goal. Okay, which was previously unthinkable. So it's talking about projects which, in the past was unthinkable. You can't think about it because it was not possible. It was impossible in the past. Previously is referring to the past. Okay, so the sentence wants to tell us that computers have been getting better, and the process for making computers better started 200 years ago, but this process got faster in the last 30 years. And as a result, now there are things which are possible in the present, but this thing was impossible in the past. Okay, so what do you think is incorrect? Oh, I have an answer. Thank you, Jack, aloha. So you said number 4, and actually I agree with your answer. So thank you for sending your answer. Yes, number 4 is incorrect. We need to change number 4. Right. Now, before I correct it, does anyone know the correct answer? What do we need to change to make number 4 correct? We can't use which was. We can't use which was. What do we need to change to make it correct? Any guesses? Okay. Thank you, Paul, for your answer, but number 3 is perfectly fine. But thank you for having a go. I'm sure you will learn how to use English grammar better today, okay? Thank you again. Okay, so does anyone know how to correct number 4? I'm sure you know the answer. Just type it out. I'll give you some time. Okay, so to make this sentence correct, yes, number 4 was incorrect, right? Just a moment. Okay, number 4 was incorrect. We can make number 4 correct by doing this. We change which was to what? Which were, right? Why do we need to use were? Does anyone know? We use were because here we are talking about projects. we're talking about many projects, not just one, but many. So it's a plural noun. So again, we need a verb which goes with a plural noun. So it's a plural verb. And we're talking about the past. So yes, it's in the past tense. That's already correct. But we can't use which was because that's for a singular noun. If we want plural verb for a plural noun, we need to change was to were. Okay, so was becomes were. And now the sentence is perfectly correct. The development of computers, which started around 200 years ago and has been progressing particularly rapidly in the last 30 years, has made possible projects which were previously unthinkable. So the improvement to computers, which began 200 years ago and have been getting better very fast in the last 30 years, result in projects which are now possible, but in the past, these projects were not possible, okay? And if you look closely, okay, I'm drawing brackets here between which and years. So from which up until 30 years, these are words which give more meaning to the sentence, but they are not part of the actual or the main sentence. So when we see a question like this, you can quickly remove these words, okay, the ones between the brackets, because they're not the main part. So when we have to decide which is correct, which is incorrect, we should separate this part first, because yes, maybe number 2 is incorrect, but then when we decide number 2, we normally need to focus on the nouns, on the words inside the brackets, because these words only serve to give more meaning. But when we have to decide, like for example here, has, if you're wondering whether has is correct or not, the first thing to do is to remove these words which only give more meaning, okay, but they are not the main idea, the main sentence. And then we focus on just here to see what is the actual subject. And look, development is uncountable, or sometimes it's a singular noun, okay, but definitely singular, not plural for sure. So that's why we need a singular verb. That's just an example. So that's a tip, okay? When we see a long sentence, try to break it down. If there is a part which only serves to give more information, try drawing brackets around them, to separate them so that you can see the main sentence better and you find the answer faster as well. Okay, guys, thank you so much for joining today, and thank you everyone for sharing your answers. Okay, so I hope you now know the correct answers and also why those answers are correct. Okay, so I hope today's live broadcast is beneficial and that you get better when you need to do tests, whether it is like a standardized test like TOEFL, TOEIC, IELTS, or in a school or university test. Okay, I wish you luck, and I hope what you have learned today will help you on the day. All right, now as we come to the end of this video, I would like to thank everyone for participating and also for watching. Okay, you can follow my live streams on my channel if you're watching on YouTube, and also on my page if you're watching on Facebook. I'll be going live regularly as often as possible, and I'll be focusing on English learning. So if there is any topic you want me to teach or focus on, please do tell me. You can message me or you can just type in the comments. All right? Okay. So that's it for today. Thank you again for joining me for today, and I will see you very, very soon. Okay, goodbye. Okay, looks